Dames en heren, mag ik uw aandacht voor Mr. Top 40, Erik de Zwart.
Erik de Zwart is a Dutch radio and television maker, former DJ, former music box, the music Factory and MTV V.J and media entrepreneur.
Well, I'm 64 years old right now. I was born in 1957, so that's of another age and another era. I grew up with only state-owned radio, but in Holland we had pirate radio stations, Radio Veronica, Radio North Sea, and they were broadcasting from a ship. Actually from a ship. For me that was amazing that they were doing that, and I was listening to the radio and I heard these guys with the dark voices announcing the records and playing them, and I thought, that's me, I want to do that. So I studied myself. There was not any school for that in Holland, neither anywhere in the world, maybe in the United States, but not in Holland. So I had to learn it myself. And in 1979 I came on a pirate radio station on the North Sea, which was completely illegal, but it was great fun to do. And I spent there about 6 months broadcasting. It was 3 weeks on the ship, 3 weeks off the ship, and then I returned to land, came ashore, and I applied for a job at the official radio, and they hired me. So that was in 1980, and Veronica Radio and Television, which was a legal broadcaster by then, they hired me, and I did several radio shows, but they also gave me the opportunity to host a television program, a television show. It was a musical show, beginning of the 80s, and in 1982 I did a more international television show called Countdown. Later on, Mr. Adam Curry was also hosting that. In the meantime, I switched broadcasters in the middle of the 80s. I worked 2 years for TROS Radio and Television. I hosted Tros Pop Formula with a lot of international guests from abroad, and the program was recorded every week in Munich in Germany. Then I came back to Veronica, did a lot of different stuff, interviewed a lot of people, also in this beautiful hotel here in the American Hard Rock Hotel. In the middle of Amsterdam. Lots of artists were here and stayed here for a couple of nights for promoting their records. And so, in 1992, commercial radio was legal in the Netherlands. So we decided to start our own radio station called Radio 538. Still on the air, still a big radio station here. I spent there for about 10 years, became the managing director of the radio station, also a DJ and managing director. It was a good combination. I hosted the Dutch Top 40 every Friday afternoon. And then in 2003 I switched jobs again, worked for John de Mol. We started a radio station in Copenhagen, Radio 100 FM, Radio 100 FM. We started out 2 radio stations here in the Netherlands, one in Belgium, and then I think in 2007 I became more a entrepreneur and more a media entrepreneur. So, that's basically my career so far, and I'm still trying new stuff all the time. Besides I'm a DJ, I'm also a great fanatic on trains. Every big trains, small trains, I like it. And I also like to film them. And I thought a couple of years ago, well, we have Netflix, we have so many opportunities right now with the current technique. So why don't we start a Netflix-like platform for train lovers? And that's called 24trains.tv. It's already 2 years on the air. You can find it on the internet. And if you have a subscription, you can watch over 3,000 videos. We have magazines, big trains, small trains, Swiss trains, German trains, even Norwegian trains, everything. So that's basically what I'm doing right now.
Everything just in 2 minutes, yeah? What advice can you give to young entrepreneurs that want to be successful?
You have to believe in yourself very strongly. Being an entrepreneur means that you have to deal with a lot of psychological stuff, a lot of financial stuff, of course. Don't be afraid. If you believe in yourself, you can manage, you can do it. And never, ever take no for an answer.
How do you describe good entrepreneur?
Well, a good entrepreneur is somebody who is always looking for new possibilities, who is always seeing things that other people don't see, and knows how to turn a good idea into a healthy business, because everybody has good ideas, but that doesn't make you a good entrepreneur. The big thing is that you have to create a real business out of a good idea, and that's more difficult than you think.
What is motivating you as an entrepreneur?
I'm a curious person. I've always been a very curious person, and always been looking around. What can I do better? What is this interesting? And well, that's the biggest motivation for me. Being curious, also always want to know what's going on. Interested in other people, what they're doing. Well,
you also have a Guinness record.
Yes. Yes, with a couple of friends of mine. There was a Norwegian guy, Gunnar Garfors, and a Dutch guy and an English guy. And we, a couple of years ago, just before the Corona crisis, we flew around the world with regular flights, scheduled flights. And we did that in 59 hours and 59 minutes, almost 60 hours. And we started out in Sydney, then went to Chile in South America, Panama, from Panama to Madrid, from Madrid to Algeria, and from Algeria to Dubai, and from Dubai back to Sydney. That's the trip what we made in 60 hours, and well, we're in the Guinness Book of Records right now. The original record was about 67 hours, and we made it better for 59 hours and 59 minutes. We had to stop in all the continents, so that's why we did this route.
What did you take from that journey?
We made a couple of videos, and we only had a couple of hours everywhere at the airport to stay. So we drank a little coffee in Santiago de Chile. We had a beer in Panama City, on Panama the airport. In Madrid, we didn't have time for anything. Algeria, there was not much to do. Dubai, we had more time. We had a beautiful. You have a real good. It's a really large airport, so it's not difficult to find any good stuff there. But back in Sydney, that was amazing, because I was never before in Australia, and I thought it was a great country, really nice people, and it was really good to be there and to come home. So we stayed there a couple of days before we went back to Europe.
You are an investor as well. What do you prefer to invest in?
I think it's always best to invest in companies that are in your interest area, because if you're investing in something you don't know anything about, well, then there's always the problem that somebody could take the piss out of you, and things could go wrong. So it's better to know a little bit about it. Being an investor does not mean that you have to run the business, because you have other people to do that, and you have to believe in those people too. That's also very important.
Media and music is your core business. What changed from the 90s until now?
Broadcasting, radio, television just started out. Of course, radio is 100 years old, but real professional radio really started in the 1970s in the United States, and later on came to Europe. In Europe, we didn't have any commercial radio stations, I think, until 1990. So that changed a lot. The listening audience, it was for the first time that they really had the choice of choosing their own radio station. But still in Europe there's a lot of influence from the governments on how also commercial stations should behave and what to do, what they broadcast. Every hour, news on the hour, even though there is no news, they should broadcast news on the hour, things like that. It changed completely with the internet, because then everybody was able to start his own radio station. And now with the telephones, the smartphones, we all have our own television station, and we can really act like that. And then the next step is, of course, we started out with 24trains.tv. Everybody will have his own Netflix. That's the next step. So it means that all the content which is produced can be seen by the audience anytime, any place, and any device. In the 1990s, it wasn't like that. You had to wait for your program, maybe a week, maybe a month, but you had to wait for your program. Now it's there in an instant second, and that's the biggest change.
What do you think about the future of media?
Media is the most important thing in our life, because we have media in our hands a couple of hours every day, and that's called your smartphone. That's media too. You're watching television on your smartphone, you're calling with other people, you have your Teams meetings, your Zoom meetings, whatever. It's your work, it's your private life, it's everything.
How internet disrupted media industry?
Internet disrupted everything, I guess, because it made things so much easier to find, to look for business. Back also around 2000, the change of the century. If you wanted something, you had to look it up. You had to buy magazines. You couldn't find it on the internet. You just have to look around, read newspapers, magazines, and stuff like that. Now you just take a couple of words and you know exactly where to find something you like or what you want to have or whatever, and you can order it straight away. So it disrupted, I think, the whole economy, and it disrupted media completely.
You're a pioneer in Holland when it comes to the radio business. Why did you start with the radio?
Well, I liked the radio always because it's something you do yourself. You can do it on your own. The problem with television always is that you need camera people, you need a director, you need people who do the sound, people who do the lighting, etc., etc. It means it's always a co-production. Nothing against that, because I did that too. But being the director, the cameraman, and the announcer in one place, that's radio, and that's what I liked.
We talked about Radio 538. What actually inspired you to start that radio?
Well, by the end of the 1980s, finally in Europe, commercial radio and television was available. We had one commercial radio station in the whole of Europe, I think, back then, and that was Radio Luxembourg. This is the oldest commercial radio station in the world. It started out in 1925. Only England and Ireland had some commercial radio stations, but it wasn't, not in Holland, not in Belgium, not in France. You had a little bit in France. In Germany, no. A little bit in Italy. But all that came along, well, I think, by the end of the 80s. And so we got the idea also here in Holland that it was time to go back to the period that we had the pirate ships. Then the young people had really the choice to choose their radio station, which they liked. And so the moment it was legal, we started out with thinking about plans, and we started out Radio 538. And we came from a very, very popular public broadcaster, Veronica. But nevertheless, we went from 20% market share to 2% when we started out with Radio 538. But after 10 years, we were the market leader. So that's good.
What was your other projects that you are proud of?
Not only Radio 538, but also we started in 1995 a music television station, TMF, the Music Factory, which was more popular than MTV in Holland. And finally we sold it to MTV for a good price. So we're still proud of that too.
Holland has given the world many of the most popular DJs the last 15 years, like DJ Tiesto, Armin van Buuren, Afrojack and others. Why do you think the Netherlands has so big success?
I think because the Dutch are always very creative. You find them anywhere in the world, and they're always there because they're very loud and they express themselves very clear. But I think it has something to do with the way the whole dance music also in the Netherlands. Guys like Armin van Buuren and DJ Tiesto, they grew up with me on the radio, which is quite funny. Only they don't talk. I did the talking and they don't talk. But they found the way to combine the popular music, the dance music. They turned it into a real big show. And that's amazing. Party organizers, the people from ID&T who come up with the big, like Sensation White or Mysteryland and stuff like the big festivals. It started out in the 90s, and we promoted it with Radio 538 all the time. But then they thought, okay, we can do that in also in other countries. And that's how they got so big. And they were the first. So there was a rave industry in the UK, but I think the Dutch, well, they went over it.
What is your future vision for media in Netherlands and the world?
Back in the old days, the record companies and the television companies and radio stations, they were in charge. They were the people who decided what you could hear, what you could see. That's completely gone. Now it's the audience, it's the listening. You have Spotify, Apple Music, you have everything you like, any moment, any time, any device, any place, it doesn't matter. Also in this hotel room, it is a beautiful hotel. If you want to watch TV, you can watch in the bathroom, you can watch TV, it's in the mirror. So media is everywhere, and that's a big difference, because we, the audience, we want that. And we want to be served at the spot where we are, and we want to see, well, whatever. So screens, by the smartphone or television screens, whatever, I think people, we are in command. And that's the biggest difference with the old days. So I think there's still a big future for media.
Do you plan to start new radio station?
Not a radio station, but I have some plans to combine television with radio. Of course, we know visual radio, but what you see then is quite an well. It's not really something nice to look at, because then you see a studio, and then you see something with big headphone, big microphone. Most of the time, people with the radio are not the most beautiful people in the world. So, and you watch them then in the studio, and they say something and they do something with the mixing console, and then they start the next record, and then they do nothing, or maybe they find something in the nose, whatever. But that's not television. That is turning good radio into lousy television. You can do that differently, and that's what I want to try in the next couple of years. Being a host that I really address on a camera and announce records and then play the video clip. So a music station like MTV, but then really as a one-person television station. And that's something completely new.
Who you interviewed in this hotel?
We could go down to the basement of the hotel, and I gave Tim Finn a golden record for his sales in Holland, for his successful solo album. I interviewed MC Hammer here in this room.
Oh, really?
And he was here in the 90s with his whole family, everything. So a couple of years later he was bankrupt because he traveled around the world with his whole family. I interviewed Wet 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 also in this hotel. Joe Cocker. I interviewed Chris Isaac.
Wow.
He played on his guitar in one of the rooms here. We filmed that for the Music Factory and so on. And it was a very good place for artists to stay. The bar downstairs, Café American, the bar, that's where most of the artists were. And if the walls could speak there, that's really nice. There's been a lot of writing about it. It's rock and roll history.
Let's rock and roll it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.